So today is a periodization program. Right? This is important, and actually this is why it's our last lecture, because to make this kind of program, you should know everything. Right? So our plan doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So KINS 425 strength and conditioning. It need more lecture hour, but we do not really have that many hours. But I have many chapter to cover. So I hope we need more time, but this is my best. So periodization program. Okay, it's checkbox, right? And how about class? You can see my PowerPoint slide is right. Oh, thank you, Motoki. Thank you, Motoki. And any question, leave message in our chat box. Right? So periodization program. This is important. This is important. Every chapter is important. This is one of the best chapters. Right? So this chapter objective. Right. So how about starting our lecture? Just I want to show real data. Real data. Yeah. So I think this is 2017. So at that time, I didn't really exercise. So my 1RM decreased. Still my 1RM is bench press 255, right? Even I said decrease, but the 255. And I would like to show my students, so like kind of periodization program. So at that time, I did strength training. There are several types, but I made one set strength training. So it means except for warming up, I did only one set. So at that time, 2 times a week and 4-week program. And you will learn today, 2 times a week program is kind of micro program, and 4-week program mesocycle. I'll teach you soon. Right? But how about this 3-4-week mesocycle program? So 2 times a week. So Monday, Thursday, I did strength training, only one set. Monday, 90% of 1RM, and I exercise as many as possible, but still one set. Doesn't make sense? Excuse me. And Thursday, is it Monday, 90% of 1RM, as many as possible. Thursday, 85% of 1RM, as many as possible. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Only one set exercise. And based on this repetition, this resistance, if I do more than before, using that difference, I can recalculate my new 90% and new 85%, and I try to do that repetition. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Yeah. I think we have some kind of lab activity before, right? So using this one, I can predict my increased 1RM, and I can change my 90%, 85% 1RM is based on my repetition. So I exercise. And if you see, this y-axis is my 1RM, but predicted 1RM. Using 90%, 85% of 1RM repetition, I predict my 1RM. How about that? Doesn't make sense? So this is why I have 1RM. And another one is decimal number, is right? 1RM cannot be decimal number. Yeah, because we do not have that kind of number. But why it has decimal number? Because it is predicted 1RM. So as you see, I did, how about 4 week? Is it 4 week? Is my 1RM is first 2 week doesn't really change, but it's keep increase. It's increased, right? It's increased. And second mesocycle, right? So it's increase. But third mesocycle, could you see there are plateau? How about class? Doesn't make sense? Wow. Oh, it seems like a 4 week, 1RM can increase. Another 4 week, 1RM can increase. But third week, 1RM doesn't increase, right? Doesn't make sense? So it means there is kind of like I reach plateau. It's a plateau. I need to change exercise program. I cannot keep doing is a strength training. How about that? Doesn't make sense? So usually after 4 weeks, I need to change. Like a strength training, hypertrophy, endurance is like this, but I did strength training. Finally, after 8 or 10 weeks, I reach plateau, right? So even I keep exercise, I reach plateau. That is not good, is right? Sometimes even I decrease my performance. That is overtraining. Hover class doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this is why we need periodization program. Hover class doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So periodization program like this. Oh, thank you, Kazi. So strategies to promote long-term training and performance improvement with, oh, this is important, pre-plan. Is a pre-plan, is already planned. Because doesn't make sense. Did you have this kind of program from physical education teacher or trainer and coach? Pre-planned program? Yeah, how about that? Doesn't make sense. If you got this kind of program, there is kind of really exercise and periodization program. But I believe you never really received. Right? Me either. When I was young, I never really received. I was athlete, never received. But this is periodization program. Pre-plan, systematic variation, systematic variation. So 4-week endurance, 4-week hypertrophy, another 4-week strength, like this. This is variation, and another one within week, Monday 90%, Thursday 85%. See, this is variation too. How about that? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. In training, specifically intensity and volume. So, oh, it sounds right. It change how can make variation using intensity and volume, but doesn't make sense. High intensity, less volume. Low intensity, high volume. Right? How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Organize in period of cycle with an overall program. So doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Like this kind of program. And using volume and intensity and operate this volume and intensity, high volume, low intensity, high intensity, low volume, like that kind of operational process, give body specific stress, is right. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Like this kind of periodization program. Yeah. And Hans Selye, right? So this is like a researcher, Hans Selye, right? So he showed the general adaptation syndrome. So general adaptation syndrome. So how about class? Could you see this graph, right? And another one, please watch here. Y-axis is performance and x-axis is time. Is time. Is okay. And another one. Right? So next week we have exam, right? And you have another class too. So I do not want to give too much stress to you. So as you see, all of the lecture for exam 4, my PowerPoint has slide has that sun symbol, right? It means it has a quiz question or exam question. Because doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So if you exercise, especially like compared to before, more higher intensity or more volume, that kind of exercise, stress is right. See, after that stress, our body has alarm phase. Is alarm phase. If you see that case, is kind of you feel like a small, right? Because you have a stress, like small, right? So we call alarm phase, and this is reaction, and your performance can decrease. So if you exercise like today, tomorrow, your performance should be decreased. So you need to take rest. Hover class doesn't make sense. Right? It's kind of like a reaction or alarm phase. But after this phase, you first feel small, but right now, oh, I think it's okay, is right? So you resist, right? You resist. Or another terminology is you are adaptive. That's stress, right? You resist, and finally, after resist, right, it can increase your performance. So we call super compensation. Super compensation. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Yeah. So you can maintain this super compensation. Do you have some kind of like a pre-planned right idea? But without this kind of idea, and after some period, your performance decrease again. Right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. That is exertion phase, or sometimes overtraining. or sometimes do not give any program, always the same program. So we have this kind of like a phase. So it doesn't make sense. Alarm phase, resistance phase, and exertion phase, or supercompensation. So how about class doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. And how about during alarm phase? Why our performance decrease? There are soreness, stiffness occur, and it decrease exercise performance. Doesn't make sense. However, if you are trained, that period is shorter. This doesn't make sense. If you are not trained, that period is longer. So for example, like this, if you do not exercise for a long time and you exercise squat, and next day, maybe sometimes a whole week, you have soreness, is right? Alarm phase that long. But if you are trained, like how a squat exercise is every 2 or 3 times every week, 2 or 3 times every week, that phase only 1 day or sometimes 2 days. Or another one, a steroid user, right? Or some kind of anabolic state they have. That case, that time is shorter too. So it means steroid user, they can exercise more frequently. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. It make it. So alarm phase. Or if you're getting older, that phase is longer too. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this is general adaptation syndrome. So this is more like a classical approach. So yeah, so it's here, right? So exercise is here, exercise here, but it's kind of like higher intensity or higher volume than before, right? And there are alarm phase. One is alarm phase, right? And there are resistance phase is adaptation occurs, right? And after this one, we have supercompensation, is right? Supercompensation. If you have really good timing to exercise, that exercise should be during supercompensation, is right? Because compensation, your performance is increased. So it's time to give another exercise program, but there are increased ones, right? So you need higher intensity or higher volume. Doesn't make sense. We cannot increase both of them, just one. You can increase higher intensity or higher volume. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Without that kind of program, yeah, it's perfect timing program. So maybe alarm phase occur, but it is increased exercise performance again. Because doesn't make sense. And another one, this graph looks very smooth, is right. But how about if you zoom in is right. That case, the exercise intensity and volume is increase, decrease, right? So some variation, but increase, right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Not just like this, right? Increase, decrease, increase, decrease. So that kind of variation is like our job. So trainer's job is not like at the gym to make fix the form. Yes, that is one of the job, but that is just first several weeks, right? But our real job is to make this kind of periodization program. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. To make this periodization program, you understand training theory, you understand exercise physiology, you understand biochemistry and biomechanics, psychology, right? Nutrition. There are a lot, is right? It's a lot. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't. This is should be our job. So after graduation, right? Your job is should be like make this kind of program. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So how about class? So far, any question? Any question? This is very classic theory, right? Classic concept, but not too many people really use to this one. So this is much what is it's easier to much understandable, right? So it's here. So how about here? See, there are some kind of exercise is here, right? This case loading, right? So give some kind of stress to the body. See, alarm phase, resistance phase, supercompensation, yeah, and there are theoretically, yeah, and that kind of alarm phase again, and small supercompensation. So it means if you start exercise, you will lose that supercompensation. Is right? Is right. So you need a timing. You need a timing. So for example, like this. How about this case? Exercise too much Oh no, I don't know. How about exercise too many times? Too frequently. Doesn't make sense. That case couldn't reach super compensation, but just alarm phase okay. Finally, that case it can become what is this? Overtraining syndrome. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. How about next one is oh my goodness, it's too late. Too late. So you should exercise during super compensation period, but didn't exercise. So this is why it's like after super compensation, don't have any benefit of training. So this doesn't make sense. The last one, oh my goodness, is perfect timing. So during super compensation, another goal and another super compensation, another low. See, it showed the two scale mean is like a heavier resistance or heavier volume. How class doesn't make sense. So that case, I can show like this, right? So B1 is kind of like Monday and exercise Tuesday, right? So how about C1 is exercise two less, right? So Monday and Saturday. But how about the last one? Monday, Thursday. So two times a week. Oh, it looks like perfect, isn't it? It's perfect. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. I already show my strength increase. I at that time I did Monday and Thursday. That is perfect to me. This is why I keep increasing my exercise performance. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So the terminology, right? So periodization sounds great. And how can we make this kind of program? So this is kind of periodization cycles terminology. First is macro cycle is a bigger one. Is a bigger one. So for example, if you are Olympic athlete, Olympian, right? That case your macro cycle is 4 years. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And there are anyway this big program. How about like this? If you compete every year like a powerlifting competition every year, that case 1 year is your macro cycle. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And next one is a mesocycle. It's a several mesocycle become one microcycle. So this case several months or usually 4 weeks can be mesocycle. So for example, right? Usually for me, I use 4 week mesocycle. How about maybe some other trainer they use 3 months mesocycle. It's really depend on their sports and event, is right? And microcycle, right? Usually 1 week program. However, if your mesocycle is like 3 months, that case this microcycle like a 4 week program. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. It's depend. It's depend. So macrocycle, mesocycle, and microcycle. For me, as a trainer, we should be expert in mesocycle. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So today I prepare one mesocycle ending of the class as our lab activity is not a lab activity, kind of a special lecture, and I show you it. And we should be expert. It doesn't matter you are like a trainer or like a strength and conditioning coach or physical education teacher, athlete trainer. Just for us, for our friend, right? We should be expert in mesocycle. And periodization period, but you know, this is strength and conditioning classes, right? It's usually for athletes. So athlete's case is not only exercise, strength, hypertrophy, endurance, power, but they need sports specific exercise too, is right? Is right? Yeah, activity, right? So how about you have Motoki and Erika, a soccer player, is right? So this case, they need endurance, hypertrophy, power, is everything. At the same time, they need sports-specific activities, right? Doesn't make sense. But usually, sports-specific activity, this is the coach's job. It doesn't make sense. But our job as a trainer for this class is focused more as resistance training. Doesn't make sense. Or some kind of skill-related fitness. For example, agility and speed. Well, I think it's agility usually using a side game is right, small game. I think that is coach's job too, right? So how about class doesn't make sense? But how about like a power, a vertical jump, standing jump, and just or anaerobic power, aerobic power, that kind of thing is our trainer's job. How about class doesn't make sense? So periodization program like resist training, high volume low intensity is the starting point, but sports specific team, they start low intensity, sports specific intensity. So more rigid training and less rigid training, and less sports specific activity and more sports specific activity. Like this kind of approach. Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. It's right. And even rigid training, high volume, less intensity, and high volume to the less volume, and less intensity to the high volume. Doesn't make sense. So there are some point is mid is right, this is right. So sometimes we call transition period, and I'll show you some. So how about class doesn't make sense? So this is simple idea. More rigid training program, less sports specific activity. Right? So it's move like this before the competition. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So it's not really easy to make it. And another one, many sports team, they have many athletes, right? But usually only one trainer, or sometimes no trainer. So coaches should be trainer too. But they have no time to do, right? Cover class doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this is why, as a trainer or coach, right? So you should be expert in Excel software. Excel software. So you should make that kind of Excel software and give it to your athlete, and you should ask, did you succeed? Oh, okay, so this program. Did you fail? Okay, so this program. Like this is right. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. So it's look like periodization program is right. See, is here. Okay. Yeah, Matiev, right? Matiev, I think it's Russian, right? A scientist, right? It's a periodization, but you know, this is the novice athlete, like a beginner athlete, not elite athlete. Okay, so it's a beginner, or this is the first time to use periodization program. Chemical doesn't make sense. See, there are 4 phases: preparation phase, and did you remember I said like it's high intensity, low intensity to high intensity, low intensity to high intensity, high volume to low volume. Doesn't make sense. That kind of a transition, right? So training technique, sports-based technique, low to high, right? So it's kind of a transition, right? So this is why first transition, and after first transition, there are competition phase. Every it should be like what is this? Is the intensity as well as the sports specific activity. It should be peak, is right? Because you should be ready to compete. And after that is the second transition, is another terminal, is active rest, is everything should be lower, is right? But how about class? This is the like very old chart, old graph, right? Please watch here. So this green and blue line is look like, oh, I think Dr. Gon is like the second transition. Is look like a sports-based technique is really high. So how about this is a theory, right? So after peak performance can be like that, but we do not need this, right? So I think this graph is a little bit confusing us. So how about class after peak second transition, we do not really need this graph. How about class doesn't make sense? So do not confuse. Do not confuse. If I ask when is our sports specific technique is the peak, it look like, oh, second phase, right? But no, right? So actually competition phase, but it's our textbook and this old classic like a chart, right? It still show like a high, but usually they just stop. They do not really exercise at that time. Theoretically they can maintain, but usually it's really loose. It's really loose. So how about class doesn't make sense? So if I ask like when is the sports-based technique is peak, that case not transition second transition, it should be during competition phase. How about class doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. Then we will quiz question or exam question. But based on this graph, it look like second transition is right, but no, during competition phase. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. See, high volume to the low volume, and low intensity to higher intensity is right. And technique is really low, but before the first transition is a little bit increased and keep increase, and at the competition it should be peak. So how about doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. So this case maybe during preparation phase, I think the coach can take a break. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. But after preparation phase, coach's job is a lot. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And another one. How about student? Could you raise your hand if you were athlete at the high school? Uh, is yeah, at the high school. When you were high school, are you participate sports too, right? Oh, I think Taj and other student, Motoki, right? So uh, when I was high school, I was in Korea, not America. But I grow my three sons. They are high school student, athlete, right? So student. Right? So two are swimmer and one is track and field and cross country. Right? So I found, right, it's American system, it's high school. So they they recruit student is right, student when the first transition or preseason and they have a season. So after 2 or 3 weeks, they compete. They have a tournament or they have league. Is it right? Is it right? So it means they do not recruit off season. That is preparation phase. Because doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So preparation phase is important, but I already said that is off season. So it sounds like many just general people think off season we should take a rest. How about that? Doesn't make sense because off season. But based on periodization program, off season is really important. So how about high school student, parent, student, and coach do not do anything during off season, and they have a preseason recruit, and after 2 or 3 weeks, they have a season. How about that? Doesn't make sense. So this is why they cannot reach peak. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make. They need like off season for preparation phase. How about class? Doesn't make sense. So this is why I was surprised. Oh my goodness! Because when I got a like a schedule from the school, it doesn't look like they're off season. So I believe during off season, you guys train yourself like this kind of approach. But my three children, luckily, they have a kinesiology professor father, so I make program for them during off season, like a preparation phase, right? But you're not, I'm not coach. So when they recruit my children, I think I just give it to them, right? You give it to the school, but I do not need to do anything because it's right now is a resistance or that kind of training should be decreased. So I think the coach can take care of it, right? Like that kind of approach. So doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So if you agree, like this kind of a situation, maybe like off season for high school student, this is kind of like a big business to tell the truth, right? So after you graduate, if you want to work like some kind of athlete, why not work high school student, especially focus off season? So how about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And another one, if you see, could you see its intensity and its volume, right? So how about it's not smooth, right? So there it is. So class, could you see here this part and this part and this part is right? So if you see zoom in, right? See there are some variation. So high intensity, smaller, high intensity, smaller, like that kind of variation. And intensity two and volume two and sports specific skill two is right. So there is variation. Usually I call that one is microcycle. Doesn't make sense. And preparation phase, it can be mesocycle or several mesocycles. And whole cycle we call macrocycle. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. See, we need like what is this? Expert is right. Expert. That is strength and conditioning specialist. It doesn't make sense. It's not like a personal trainer job. This is supposed like a strength and conditioning specialist job is a purification. But to make this one right, we need like what is this? Expert in our physiology, chemistry is a lot. Right? Oh, how about class? I just want to come back is here to explain a little more here. Please see. So this is why I said, oh, don't confuse competition phase and second transition phase, right? Because of this graph, right? This graph is pretty good, is right? So I think we can exercise here too for this transition. So how about next slide? It show is exactly is much better. Right? See, it's here. It should show like this. It should show like this, right? So Matthew, right? This is old. I think it's 1960, like that year. But is American exercise scientists, they apply. See, is their graph is look like this, right? This is much understandable. This is why you can figure out, oh, okay. So competition phase, we have peak, is right? It's peak. But if you see this chart, is look like, I think it's the second transition. Maybe you can confuse, right? So how about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this graph is better. Is better. So y-axis is performance and x-axis is time. So this is important. So yeah, this is really time is right. Yeah, it's dependent time. So y-axis performance, x-axis is time. It's period. So how about class? Do you have any questions so far? So far? Any student, do you have a question? Question? So actually, this periodization program is modified by Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone. I'm sorry, I forgot his last name. First was I didn't remember his first name or last name. It's Dr. Stone. It's very popular. And how about class? I just type in our checkbox. If we are interesting, is like a performance master degree or performance PhD degree, especially. So performance master degree, our university is good too, but we do not have any PhD program. But there are performance like strength and conditioning PhD program in America. I just want to type the name, the school name. So East Tennessee State University. They have like this kind of strength and training conditioning PhD program. How about, doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. East Tennessee State University. And this slide is Dr. Stone. He was the chairperson in that program. But you know, he's old. I believe he retired. But anyway, this is why I remember this university. So because this KINS 425, just in case if you are interested like this kind of program, yeah, I just type the name. East Tennessee State University. Our class doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So you are my student for KINS 425. So any student any student need a recommendation letter for me. I write recommendation letter. So after graduation or before the graduation, if you need a recommendation letter, please email me. Okay, okay. And I know I have some connection too, so maybe I can help. Excuse me. Excuse me. But however, class, did you remember? This is for beginner athlete, novice athlete. Yeah. So this is why dramatic change is right. Dramatic change. But however, if you have athlete, professional athlete, varsity athlete, high level athlete, professional, right? They do not have like this kind of graph. So they need like this. Still higher to lower, lower to high is right. But still volume and intensity higher to low, lower to high, but not that much, right? See, it's already high and a little bit changed, right? So how about class? Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense? Class, do you agree? Do you agree? If you are athlete like Motoki Erika, Taz, and I think other student athlete too is right. Yeah, I think it's Margot too, right? So this case you understand how can exercise low intensity high volume is right? So actually already high and they have some kind of variation. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense? Because they already reach. They already reach. They are like a ceiling. Is right? Is right? But like high school students, beginner, they can have this kind of difference, but athletes do not have that kind of like that adaptation. And this is why professional athlete can be overtrained. Is right? So for them, resting is more important. Papa class doesn't make sense. So optimize exercise program for preventing overreaching or overtraining and increase optimize exercise performance is maximize exercise performance. Optimize training is important. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. It should less time, but they need more resting time. Class doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this program is look like this. So it doesn't make sense. It's right now, if you can make this kind of program, you do not have any problem to be hired. Doesn't make sense, especially like a sports team, like athlete level. So how about like Luis? I think he's interesting is like football team trainer, but to do he should be expert like this kind of program. Doesn't make sense. When he has interview, he should demonstrate like this kind of periodization program. I think he easily can be hired. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't. Yeah. So, but I can show a little bit different terminology because the left graph is right. Traditional graph is like linear, right? It look like linear graph. Doesn't make sense. So we call linear periodization. But however, the right side graph is not periodization, but it's not like linear, is right? It's look like this, look like this, right? So I would like to say that kind of program is non-linear periodization program. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense? Oh, how about doctor? What does it mean? So linear periodization is really for athletes, especially for their event. So how about I think is is our students Margot. She's I think is compared is a powerlifting. So that case, I would like to recommend her is compete just 1 year. So or 2 times a year. Right? Doesn't make sense. So her macro cycle should be half a year or 1 year. Doesn't make sense. That case, she need linear periodization program to pick to get a peak per year, right? So her peak period like around 3 weeks per year. Doesn't make sense. She need linear periodization. However, how about maybe uh how about like no, I think Motoki is saying too, right? How about firefighter? If we have firefighter, police officer, firefighter, police officer, they have like a scheduled event. No, is right. They can be always even die. Is right. If you do not if you they have like lacking of thing, they can be dies, right? So every week, every month, every day, every time, they should be perfect person. Like Avengers doesn't make sense. So like this kind of hard worker, right? Because of a job, yeah, they need linear periodization program. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, they should have high strength, high endurance, high hypertrophy, high aerobic capacity, high anaerobic capacity anytime. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So for me, if I have firefighter, police officer, or SWAT team member, that case I would like to give maybe first linear periodization program, but after they reach their like every what is a fitness component is a maximum need, I would like to give non-linear periodization program. So for example, like this, Monday endurance program, Thursday hypertrophy program, and next Monday strength program. It's like this. Hyperclass doesn't make sense. So increase all of them, increase all of, or maintain all of them. That is non-linear periodization program. Hyperclass doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. This makes sense, is right. So after graduation, if you work for like a firefighter, police officer, or lumberjack, like that kind of people, like this kind of job, right? So you should be expert non-linear periodization program. But if you work for like some team, sports team, or like a university, right, or high school, right, you need like what is this? Expert in linear periodization program. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. General population usually need non-linear periodization program too. This doesn't make sense. Doesn't. Any question? See, how about like this kind of people? They do not have any event, right? They do not have any Olympic, right? They should be always good. Yeah, doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Like for example, right? Like it's a SWAT team, wildland firefighter, is right. It's a job. Oh, I think maybe a crab fisherman in the Alaska. That case maybe a little bit similar, like because it's only some period, is right? Only some period. That can be not linear periods is good for that. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So they should make really good strength and like power and endurance And I think it's like 1 month maybe or several weeks they can spend that time. Right? It's kind of like Olympic style. Right? It's peak. Right? It's like a league or tournament. How about more detail? Right? So preparatory period, right? Preparatory period and first transition period, competition period, and second transition period is right. So important thing is preparatory period. Preparatory period for trainer and coaches is very important. After first transition or during first transition and competition period, is a coach's job is really important. How about that? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And preparatory period, you should introduce and give a program to the athlete, endurance, hypertrophy, basic strength, and sometimes preparatory period as well as first transition period, you should give power training. Doesn't make sense. And after power training is coach can really focus sports-based skill. Is right. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So preparatory period is busy day. Yeah, busy period for trainer. So preparatory period, I would like to read. The initial period is usually the longest and occur during the time of the year when there are no competition of season. Is right? Doesn't make sense. This is why I said high school students they have off season. They have off season, but nobody care then. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. But this is important period. So it means high school student. How about just imagine you are like parents, you should send high school student to some training center, right? If you understand this like what is mechanism, right? Because school do not cover does schools do not cover the off season, is right? But this is important period. And limited number of sports-based skill, practice or games, practice sessions, right? So this one is usually transition period, is right? It can increase agility. Did you remember? Did you remember? That is coach's job. The major emphasis of this period is establishing a base level of conditioning to increase athlete tolerance for more intense training. So this case, first within preparation phase, endurance first, and hypertrophy, and strength, and power. But endurance and hypertrophy phase, did you see here? You should increase their tolerances, right? So high volume and short resting time. So it can increase their tolerance. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Exercise tolerance is right, is right. Like that kind of approach. So for me, if I make order during preparation phase, I want to put endurance first and hypertrophy. So endurance, low intensity, high volume, and hypertrophy, less volume than endurance, but medium intensity, and strength, low intensity, high volume is right. See, doesn't make sense. Yeah. But we can focus tolerance. So this is why endurance, hypertrophy, strength, and power is right. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Like this kind of order during preparation phase. So preparatory period, So here, hypertrophy and endurance is right. Hypertrophy and endurance. So how about class low to moderate intensity, but high to moderate volume is right. But this case is right. So our textbook said 50 to 75% and 3 to 6 set at 8 to 20 repetitions, right? But that kind of program. So hypertrophy, endurance, high volume, low in intensity or moderate intensity. It depends on hypertrophy and endurance. And the goal is increase lean body mass, and increase endurance. You see, it's hypertrophy endurance, right? How about class? Please watch here. It's time to increase lean body mass, right? It means which kind of state this period, hypertrophy, endurance, which kind of body has state, like a anabolic state. Do you agree? Not catabolic state. How about that? Doesn't make sense. So this period, your body should have anabolic state. Is right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this case, to increase lean body mass, we need this kind of program, and which kind of food we should eat. Doesn't make sense? To make anabolic state. Because we should increase our muscle mass at that time, is right? How about class? Doesn't make sense? So we need this kind of program, but at the same time, we should eat to increase, to make anabolic state. Class, doesn't make sense? So carbohydrate is right. You should eat carbohydrate at that time, athlete, so they can increase insulin level. Insulin's role is make anabolic state, make build up. Doesn't make sense. So you should athletes should eat carbohydrate and at the same time eat frequently. Eat frequently, so they can increase. They can increase always the what is insulin level. Doesn't make sense. So it increases insulin level. It make our anabolic state is a body is already ready to make like what is this is a lean body mass. Doesn't make sense. Preparatory period. And after this period, it's become high intensity, low volume. Doesn't make sense. High intensity, low volume. See, less set, less repetition, but high intensity. Doesn't make sense. And how about a first transition period, right? How about this period? Right now is transition. So high volume and low volume and low intensity, high intensity. They meet together. Transition is right. And another one is time to show like a power exercise after strength training. See here. See, strength and power phase is right. So hypertrophy, endurance, hypertrophy, and strength and power, but during first transition period, the power. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. It means it's like really transition from the result training to the sports specific. There are power there, power because athletes they need the power, right? Except for bodybuilding, we need the power, right? Bodybuilding is sports, right? But other sports they need the power. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So how about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And this one is a little small font. Usually 1 week of low intensity and lower volume before begin competition period, right? So it means during the competition, how about 1 week? There is a little bit specific period. Decrease everything. Decrease intensity. Decrease intensity. Decrease volume, right? To get a peak, right? Like that kind of approach. And right now, competition period. This is important period, right? For peaking, right? For peaking. So peaking during competition period, right? So how about this is a sun symbolism, right? This is quiz question, exam question. Right? So this competition period usually 3 weeks. So it means athlete can maintain this peak phase is around 3 weeks. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Right? It's dependent sports and dependent event, but usually 3 weeks we need this kind of period. So to make this peak, yeah, we have a lot of time, is right? A lot of time and make peak, is right? Doesn't make sense. How about like a Margot is powerlifting? If she has like a October, so October, ending of October, for like a competition, it means is around that period, like 3 weeks, she needs like peak performance, peak state, right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. But to do this one, she needs a lot of period, right? Preparation and transition, right? The peak, right? Doesn't make sense. And when she compete, but at that time even peak, that case 1 week before the competition, she should decrease intensity and volume as everything should be decreased. Usually we call tapering, is right? Tapering. So she can maintain. So to get this peak, we can have this kind of intensity, is right? Or if we maintain is a little bit longer, that can be we have maintenance program for this peak, is right? So this is kind of resist program, that kind of exercise intensity. So how about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And next one is easy. Second transition period. This is after after peak, after competition. That is just like active rest. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Yeah. So this case, you do not need to really worry about your athlete. You can just say, please exercise recreationally. How about class? Doesn't make sense. So how about big picture again? C is here, right? So this is like it can be one mesocycle or several mesocycles. It depends on sports and event, is right. And first transition, that is another mesocycle. And like competition phase, this is another mesocycle. And second transition, that is a mesocycle, but usually we do not really give exercise program, just allow them to like recreationally active. So how about class? This is all our lecture, so it's done. And how about I have a special lecture to discuss. So this is kind of a special lecture. Oh, I'm sorry. This is I non-linear, but actually I prepare linear periodization program, but I explain a little bit non-linear program is using the real program. So how about class? Did you remember? Periodization program, preparatory period, there are endurance, hypertrophy, strength, and power is right. But today, I want to show the endurance one. Excuse me. See, if you make this table, see, it's like hypertrophy endurance program first is right. So you should make some program. So I show you. So how about first show the program, and I want to show this video. So I think it's 7 or 8 years ago when I came to our university. Is a Akera firefighter, this fire district is contacting me to make exercise to be tested and to be trained by our university. So at that time, I trained their health and skill with fitness component, yeah, and make fitness profile for them. Yeah, does it make sense? Yeah, and give exercise program too is like this. Carbohydrate doesn't make sense. Yeah, yeah. So make athlete profile and test to find weak and strong point of them, right? And make exercise program, right? And give it to them and train them. Carbohydrate doesn't make sense until by before COVID-19, right? So I have a lot of career. Carbohydrate doesn't make sense. So at that time, because their endurance, hypertrophy strength is not really reach their maximum. So at that time, I give linear periodization program. Carbohydrate doesn't make sense. But after 6 months, they have a on linear periodization, non-linear periodization program. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this is kind of an example. And another one, you already learned from this one using our lab activity 6, make descending recent set. How about class? Did you remember? So how about class is here? So at that time, I make endurance testing, muscular endurance testing for firefighter. Is right. So how about class? See this table. So intensity like 50 to 75%. So I use 65%. It's good. But how about here? Volume, high to moderate volume is right. So I just using NSCA the requirement, the like recommendation, 65% 1 RM, 3 to 4 set, and 30-second resting time, right? Because of a 30-second resting time, repetition decrease. I think you remember it, right? Our lab activity 6 descending use set is right. Repetition decrease. So actually our goal is increase volume, but cannot increase volume because you keep only 30-second resting time, is a repetition decrease. How about class doesn't make sense? So we need that exercise intensity, we need like exercise tolerance, and we need high volume. But the problem is at that time, because of a 30-second resting time to make increase their exercise tolerance, but the problem is volume is small. Class doesn't make sense, doesn't make sense. So this is why our lab activity 6, descending this set, you already practiced, we make descending set, it increase training volume 30 to 50%. How about class? Doesn't make sense, doesn't make sense. So everything is good, but I need increase volume. So this is why I use our textbook doesn't have like how to increase training volume, but one of the textbook, this one, this is our optional textbook, right? Is introduce this drop set, but not really descending set. The drop set just reduce weight, right? But they didn't really demonstrate how to optimize resistance, right? So this is why Dr. Gon using lab 6, right? Is a descending resistance. I believe beautifully explain how to make set. Descending reset is right. Did you remember? So anyway, how about just remind you, like using first repetition and the 65 plus 1 RM is right, but repetition decrease, how to set up descending, we just said. How about class, did you remember to make a trend line? If you didn't remember, please go back to our lab 6, lab activity 6, right? So 7 repetition mean is around 89%, is not 65%. And 4 repetition mean is kind of 95% 1 RM, 94% 1 RM, is not anymore 65% 1 RM. Yeah. And two repetition mean is kind of like 98% of 1 RM, is not 65% 1 RM. So based on this one, using that percent of 1 RM, I can recalculate decrease 1 RM and multiply 65% that decrease 1 RM. I can figure out their descending resist set. How about class? Did you remember? So it means 125, 90, 85, and 80. This kind of descending resist set, if I give to this person, theoretically, this person can do 20, 20, 20, 20 repetitions, so 80 repetitions. So it's increased training volume up to 30 to 50%. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Did you remember? This is the descending resistance set, is right? So using this resistance, you can make this mesocycle. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. So it's here. So this is another example. See, there are descending resistance is here. So this is Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday. So 4-week mesocycle. Monday, 65%, right? This case, Thursday, 65% too, right? So there are descending resistance, but repetition should be same. How about this case, 20, 20, 20, 20? How about class? Doesn't make sense. Descending set. Theoretically, they can do 20, 22, 22, 22, 22. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Could you show me if you understand this mesocycle? See, using this trend line, develop descending set and the repetition is right. And next one, oh, thank you, Taj. Thank you, Taj. See, Taj, please see here. So this Monday, Thursday, but how about class or any student? See, why Thursday? Thursday has arrow. Can you guess? And another one, there are 3 different intensity. Can you guess? Can you guess? So it's like this. It means every Thursday, every Thursday, not Monday, every Thursday, see, if athlete or trainee succeed all repetition, 22, 20, 22, 22. So next Monday, this descending resistance is a little bit increased because it succeeds, is right? So intensity should be increased. However, if athlete fail only one set like this, 20, 20, 20, 15, it's fail one set, is right? That case, same way, same way. However, if athlete fail 2 or more than 2 sets, like this, 20, 20, 15, 10, that case, next week, weight is a little bit decreased. Just simply decrease 2.5% every resistance. How about that? Doesn't make sense. So it's like this. So this is lighter weight. So athlete can do first week based on Thursday, it can increase resistance or same resistance or lighter resistance. How about class? Doesn't make sense. How about this case? If this lighter resistance, that Thursday, again, based on this Thursday performance, lighter, same resistance, heavier. How about class? Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. So every Thursday, training at the same time, testing. So this is why I can figure out this athlete is stronger, weaker, or just plateau. How about class? Doesn't make sense. So how about like this? It means if athlete did a really good job, really good condition, that case maybe decrease like this. It sounds good, is right? Or how about just plateau, just go straight? Or even they are getting weaker, getting weaker. Even they train, they're getting weaker. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And any student, did you understand? Could you show me your thumb up? Or do you need more explanation? Oh, how about motorkit cards? Oh, Margot, Luis is understandable, is right? Mesocycle, mesocycle. And another one, how to track, how to track. How about if this is Margot, that case I can track. Margot is like weaker or plateau or stronger, is right? Doesn't make sense. So after this 4-week training, I can decide based on her performance, how about hypertrophy, strength, or endurance, or even how about active rest. Oh, I think this performance is not good, right? So how about that? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Like this kind of approach. So how about next slide? How about class? If how about Margot? Can I borrow your name? How about Margot did like this? This blue line. It means is Margot did a good job or a bad job? How about this one? How about like this? It's just it's good. Oh yes, this case 22 repetition. Yeah, 22 repetition. So how about Margot is a good job or bad job? So this case is good, is right? How about other student? Do you think is good, is right? Because I can increase his intensity because she complete all training volume, is right? So I can increase intensity because she complete all training volume, right? So I can put this, oh my goodness, good job. We just keep going, is right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense, right? Right. And however, how about, oh my God, this one. How about, can I borrow another student's name? How about Taj? I'm sorry, Taj. This is Taj. It's good or bad? It's up. It's good or bad? Because he couldn't complete volume. So I just decrease intensity. So this is why I go up. Yeah, it's not good, is right? But how about Margot and Tazi? Because I confuse you guys. But you know, this person, this Tars, he kept exercise, but performance not good, is right? So it mean it is. Can you guess what is this? Because he kept exercise, but performance decreased. What is this? We should be nice to our athlete. So I cannot say that Taji, you are not diligent. Not like this. It means this is overtraining, overreaching. Doesn't make sense. Because Taji keep exercise, but performance decrease. So this is why I can figure out is overtraining. So it means Taji, I think you need to take a rest. You need a 2-week break. Right? How about that? Doesn't make sense. Do not say like this, Taji, you are not diligent. You are negligent. Not like this. Because this person exercise, but performance decrease. It means it's overtraining. So I think that is my negligence. Should be careful. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And how see? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So that is not correct. This is the overtraining. So cannot show that kind of face to our athlete. It's not correct, right? But just I put the for like entertainment. And how about this one? How about this one? This is just okay, is it right? Just okay. Yeah, it's a plateau. Not too bad, not too good, is right. Doesn't make sense. Or maybe it's time to on linear periodization program because it's kind of plateau, is right. Cannot really decrease. It's not really overtrain, but cannot really increase, is right. So that can be maybe it's time to undulating program, right? For non-linear periodization, for example, like this. Monday endurance, Thursday hypertrophy, Monday strength, Thursday power, like this kind of thing. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So, oh, I'm sorry. How about stop here? So here. So right now, I almost done today, right? So how about class like this? If you go to the like team sports, yeah, go to team sports, you have like 50 to 70 football player I think it's like Erika is Motoki here, like 24, 30 soccer team player is right. Not only one person, you have that many. So how about for example like this? I think we have Erika Motoki here. So this case like this. So if coach is ask Motoki or Erika as a trainer, so how about Motoki, right? So Motoki, I need 5 or 6 athletes for your group. So could you recommend 5 or 6 athletes to me? How about like this? This weekend we have like a game, right? That case, right? How about is Motoki has 20, 18 students, Erika has 18 students, right? This case. So Motoki should give 6 number, 5 or 6 name of a student to the coach, right? But that case, I think we should admit we are human, right? How about I have some preference sometimes. So I have some trainee, I like them. So I think I like them, they can compete. Or I do not like them, they cannot compete. Like that kind of approach is possible, is right? It's possible. If you do not have any objective data based on your subjective understanding, right? I think they are good, but they are not good. That is very subjective, is right? So how about Motoki said, oh, I would like to recommend this kind of people. It can be very subjective. If he talk about athlete's name, for example, Motoki said, Carlos, Sky, Allen, Yexei can compete, right? It means he called the student's name, athlete's name. That is subjective. So he cannot use the name. What does it mean? So it means Motoki should have this kind of program. He should put the number instead of the name. How about class? Could you hear me? I think it's a little bit closer. Could you hear me? Could you hear me? Yeah. To recommend athlete, thank you, Margo, athlete to the coach, he should make this table, right? Chart under the wall, but cannot put their name, just number. So even Motoki don't know the number 13 is like Erika. No, he cannot know, right? So Tutor is right this. Yeah, doesn't make sense. And we need that chart. So if I'm Motoki, I would like to recruit some intern student from kinesiology. So collecting data, all of them, or athlete can they can put, so they can put they succeed or fail, is right. So this is why they have this kind of a trend. It doesn't make sense. So how about class is right now is Motoki should choose 5 students or 6 students. How about 5 students, right? So how about if we are Motoki or Motoki himself, right? Which kind of a number student can compete this weekend? He should say number to the coach. Could you type the number of the student or athlete in our checkbox? Our class doesn't make sense. Which student is really good condition? Any volunteer student? Could you type the number of student? Right? Oh, how about Tajik's 1, 8, 19, 13, 15? Right. And how about other students? Do you agree? Do you agree? Why is Tajik choose 1, 8? Now, I think 1, 8, 13, 15. I think it's 10 is right. Tajik, not 19 is right. 1, 8, 10, 13, 15. How about other students? Do you agree? Do you agree? Yeah. See, one student is keep increase intensity, keep complete every training volume, is right. And 8, 10, 13, 15 is right. Yeah. So theoretically, Motoki must set 1, 8, 10, 13, 15. So even Motoki didn't say the student's name, athlete's name. So there are no subjective feeling. It's very objective feeling. However, if Motoki like number 7 student, but see, 7 student is getting weaker. It's overtrained. See, that case, that number 7 student can compete this Sunday, this weekend. So that case, right, can be injured, right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. How about class? Doesn't make sense, is right. So this is kind of objective way to like deal with our athlete. It's good for them. Right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. We need this kind of chart. But this is not only one chart. You have like upper body, lower body, power, hypertrophy, strength, and maybe another word. They have a sports space B, for example, small game and side game and agility, speed. A lot of data is right. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So this is why you should be expert in Excel. And doesn't make sense. Excel software. Right? So using Excel without Excel software, you can never make it. Right? Doesn't make sense. And you need some kind of intern student to put the data to. Right? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Like this kind of approach. So for me, as a kinesiology professor, I always follow this kind of program. Even me, right? Even me. So I have all of the program. So without pre-planned program, I do not exercise. Doesn't make sense because periodization is pre-planned, pre-planned. But many times is our fitness or like athlete field. Sometimes they use training diary. It means not pre-planned. They just write down what they did. Oh, I did 80 pounds, 3 reps. This is right. That is useless, is right. It's not really useful. Right? So we need pre-planned periodization program. This is one of the periodization program. It's a major cycle, especially for team sports. How about class? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. But however, so for example, like firefighter, police officer, or athlete is professional athlete, they need non-linear periodization program. How about like this? Is here. Could you see box 29.2? See Monday 4 set 12 to 15 RM. So it means that is kind of endurance. And Wednesday 3 to 4 set 4 to 6 RM. It sounds like strength, is right. And Friday 4 set of 8 to 10 RM. It sounds like hypertrophy. And Monday 4 to 5 set 1 to 3 RM. Oh, it's like high intensity strength. And Wednesday power day 3 to 5 set 3 at 30 to 45% RM. Oh, it sounds like a little bit low intensity power. It means this athlete is kind of like a soccer, a basketball, baseball athlete, but they need the power. It's not powerlifting power. Powerlifter, they need a higher percentage of power in 1 RM power, but that is different. So Habakkuk doesn't make sense. See, it's like what is this? This program is within week or within 2 weeks. Everything has this, right? Not like a 4-week endurance, 4-week hypertrophy, not like this. 2 weeks, it has everything. That is non-linear periodization program. Doesn't make sense. So this kind of program for like a police officer and firefighter and like this, like doesn't make sense. See, like this kind of like a police officer, right? Is very anaerobic capacity is really good, is right? Doesn't make sense. They do not have any event, right? They can event every time, every day, is right? So non-linear periodization program perfect for this police officer. So it's another business. So after graduation, if you work with like this police officer, firefighter, SWAT member, what high athlete, right? Is right. That case, you need expert in non-linear periodization program. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So how about like this? So this case, this one endurance, this one hypertrophy, this one is strength, and this one is power. So you should make that kind of program. That is non-linear periodization program. Hoverclass doesn't make sense. That kind of high-level program you can learn KINS 450B or KINS 5888 class is my another classes. But at this time, I just introduced to you. Oh, I think that's it. So how about class? The last one is how about I just stop share and the last one, please, yeah, don't leave. Last one. The last one is, and I just simply I want to share website. Oh, so class, could you see my website? Could you watch? Yeah, could you watch? Could you show me this website? Oh, thank you, Margo. Right, thank you, Motoki. Right, Carlos. So it's like after service maintenance, right? So after graduation, Oh, I think I remember Dr. Gon teach us like this kind of program. I didn't really remember. I think Dr. Gon showed us some normative data, but he said he developed. So I cannot find any another textbook like this kind of approaches, right? So this is why I'm like creating is my website include this kind of information for you guys. So it means you can understand what I mean is here, but other people they didn't learn from me. They don't know what is this, is right? So it's really for you guys. So how about for example, this is the 4-week endurance training program. I just click is here, right? So how about like this? See, oh, I'm sorry. Go to the material. So I just put like a 1RM test, some test like a video. Video is here, and like how to develop chart is here, is right, and how to chart and make program, and everything has a video and post test. So like this, and I'll keep update this kind of program, so you can use this one after graduation. Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense? Yeah. So how about is not yet, not yet. So I'm just track making. So whenever I finish, and you can send email to me, or I can send this whole email to the my previous student, right? Oh, it's right now ready. So please take this kind of like advantage from me. How about it doesn't make sense? This case, and you can get some idea, and you have some questions, send email to me. I can help easily, is right? Without this one, maybe Margot said, oh, Dr. Won, I didn't remember descending set. Could you help me? I cannot help, is right? At that time, doesn't make sense, doesn't make sense. So this is kind of my plan to help you guys. So cover class doesn't make sense. So I think that's it, right? That's it. So I believe this semester is a really good time. I cannot teach all of them, but I think it's enough to open your eyes, is right? Why this is important, and there are a lot of opportunity, and I think it's kind of motivate to study more. How about class doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense.